Are any questions people would like to ask? Yes.
Given problems at the moment with so many, and it's a difficult question and you didn't cause the problem, but I'll bring it up because it bothers me. Given the problem at the moment with so many nuns disrobing and some of the disparaging marks by senior monks, that has obviously caused pain and offence to those practitioners. Should not they seek forgiveness from them as monks if they hurt people?
Well, it's a good question. I think for us as Buddhists, there needs to be that recognition of the effects of our actions, and I've only just arrived in the country a month or so ago, so I haven't been around myself, so I don't know exactly what's been said, where and by whom, and so on. But it's always important to be examining your own actions. You know, what you said, what you've done, the attitudes that you have, and I would agree, acknowledging the hurt that's been done, whether it's intended or unintended, and that's why we have this ceremony of asking for forgiveness and then offering that. Like I've never been in any of those ceremonies where someone says no, I don't forgive you, and but it requires a certain amount of humility and a sense of also a recognition of that yes, whether I've intended it or not, my actions have been hurtful to others. So I feel a little bit like I don't want to be saying monk X should do this or should do that. It's because it's also up to the individual to recognize their own shortcomings and to then make efforts to repair that. And that's what the Buddha, over and over again, the Buddha used the expression to recognize our transgressions as such, and to acknowledge them, and then to endeavor to do better in the future. This is called development in the Buddhisasana. So, I would similarly, if people see that they've done things that are harmful, then I would encourage them to recognize that and to make steps to repair or to address the harm that's been done. I'm not sure if that answers your question, but whether it's things that monastics have done or been said by within the lay community, I certainly acknowledge there's part of the reason that I got invited to come here and to be part of the community is because of the kind of rifts and difficulties there have been in the last couple of years, and so I'm doing what I can to help open up channels of communication, because there needs to be a basis of trust and respect, a basis of communication, and if that's not there, then it doesn't really matter what's said on the surface level. There needs to be a genuine sense of communication, a genuine sense of respect and trust. So, to me, that the most important thing is trying to establish that basis of respect and trust, and then from that, then the genuine quality of asking for forgiveness or recognition of shortcomings. Because if it's done with resentment, or if it's just a superficial expression of that, then it doesn't really help. But if there's a basis of communication, a basis of respect and trust, then that quality of real well-being can grow out of that. But if that basic trust and respect isn't there, then it's very difficult to find a way forward.
It seems strange that a monk could sit in a position like you're in, and monks have, and nuns as well, have encouraged me to forgive people, but they can't practice it themselves.
There's now as queer as folk, as they say. Yeah, I'm not trying to belittle what you're saying. You know, it's strange. But I think it's important. I'm glad that you feel you have the right to speak up, to raise those kind of questions in a public forum. So don't feel that that's a wrong thing to ask or something that's out of order. It's good to ask, and also just to express that that's strange, how that is that way. And when I say there's now as queer as folk, that's I'm only half joking. It's because we're not completely rational beings. Not a lot of the things that we do don't add up. That not everything is in us as human beings agrees. That, and it's only really with our full development, when those qualities of the fetters fall away, then and the biases of aversion, of delusion, of fear, of greed, once the biases have fallen away, then that we are much more able to function in a very like a fully integrated way. But until those biases have all fallen away, until they're overcome, then there are going to be lots of inconsistencies within us. Parts can be very wise, and other parts can be quite immature. Quite heavily influenced by different kinds of conditioning and habits and so on. To think of a human being as a single thing, we're more like a committee or a metropolis, maybe. There's a whole aggregation of different influences that come together, and we call it a person, but it's a whole array of different elements that come together and form what we think of as ourselves. Yes.
Is letting go of hate the same as forgiveness?
It's close. It's close. I mean, the question was: is letting go of hate the same as forgiveness? It's. I would say it's on the way to that. The heart that's really free of any kind of negativity or resentment. The word for grudge in Pali is patika. That's correct? Yeah. I got very blessed with a crew of expert Pali scholars here, so I can check anything that I'm not sure of. So forgiveness, it's so that there's letting go of hate and grudge is one thing, but then in a sense of forgiveness, like I was saying, it's when it's really fulfilled, then there's that quality of compassion is part of it as well, a sense of not just letting go of the negative side of it, but also a quality of appreciation and compassion, that you feel there's a genuine sense of empathy or feeling the difficulty of that person's struggles for where they're coming from, causing them to act in the way that they have done. But I would say the first part is letting go of the hatred. It's also, the word forgiveness has got give in it. So it's and forgiving. There's a kind of generosity in there, in a way allowing, giving people the space to be the way they are, and allowing your own heart to be free from judgment or criticism around that. So that generosity, that giving element, has a a quality of brightness to it. That make sense? Yeah. Yes, there's a hand back there, please.
Firstly, welcome back.
Hello there, John.
Within the Sangha, you've got this ceremony of forgiveness. And I'm still naive enough to think that most monks and nuns basically do stuff equal and actually don't deliberately hurt each other. So I'd like to hit that naivety. But in lay life, it isn't like that. There is no form for really forgiving and being forgiven. That form doesn't exist in our society outside around the notice. And the difficulty that I find is the difficulty of forgiving when it's been planned, when it's been plotted, when the hurt is deliberate rather than unintentional. Could you say something about that?
Well, I hate to disillusion you, but it does happen in monasteries too. Whether that's a kind of Schadenfreude, you feel any kind of relief that it happens everywhere, but yeah, it's harder to find space for that when it's, say, there's a deliberate harming, or someone has gone out of their way in order to cause difficulty. It's more of a demand upon us. But just to go back to that, the principle I was talking about in the earlier part of the talk, we recognize that if we're carrying around resentment, that's doing ourselves harm. We're digging ourselves into a hole by doing that. Now, that doesn't mean to say that we need to be a doormat or just going along with what other people are doing. And so sometimes that, how I was saying, it's important to recognize that you can have great loving kindness and respect for someone, but object strongly to their actions. So if you see that someone's doing that or has done that, then you can, with respect and loving kindness, say, excuse me, but that's outrageous, or I'm not going to go along with this. And that's difficult for us to find that, because we tend to relate to things in the way of, oh, if you're opposing my actions, you're opposing me. If you object to this, you object to me. You're rejecting me. And so it can be hard to find that place of clarity in ourselves and to come from that in a sincere way. But if we really know our own intentions and we've really weighed up our actions, then it can be be a very helpful thing to another person. Say, no, I don't hate you. I have no negativity towards you, but no, I'm absolutely not going to go along with what you're doing. And you can interpret however you like, but I have no rancor towards you. But I'm not going to buy into this. I'm not going to go along with this. And one of the regrets that I have was there was many years ago when we were before the temple was built. You might even have been in on some of these discussions. There was Lumpur Sumedho asked a group of us, the monastics. I think it was myself and Tan Vipassi, Tan Atapemo, and Sister Chintamani, were the four of us. And he said we were talking with him one time about, this was in the era of Amaravati with the open courtyard and this kind of desolate army barracks on a frozen hilltop era. It's very hard to remember that now, but that's what it used to be like. And so we were talking about the idea of having a temple building. And so he was enthusiastic about that and said, well, why don't you get together and make up a plan? And so we... I remember it was Christmas Day, probably about 1988, and the four of us sat down and sort of did a long brainstorming session and drew up these ideas of having a courtyard and a temple, and it actually ended up, what we ended up having here was very similar to what we drew up that day. Anyhow, we spent a lot of time on it, and particularly Ajahn Vipassi put a great deal of effort into making all these drawings and setting everything up, and then it was presented to the English Sangha Trust. And as someone who was part of the trust, the secretary at that time, when it was presented to the meeting, and I'm not trying to put him down, but it was just using this as an example, it was presented in this extraordinarily kind of offhand way, like, well, I don't know what these these complete amateurs feel they're doing, but I've been asked to present this to the meeting, so here it is. But we all know this is a waste of time, don't we? You know? And I was sitting there with my jaw hanging open, and it was really, I'm not embellishing that too much. It was really extraordinarily dismissive, and there was no clue that that's what he was going to do before the meeting. It was, oh, thank you very much, it's all very good, oh yes, all these pages of notes too, oh great, yes, very good. And so it was an instance where it was like, we were sort of deliberately led along, there was no clue, and he completely sabotaged the presentation of it in the meeting. And so the rest of the trustees sort of said, okay, well, let's get a proper person to do this, how about you? Oh, of course. And so he sort of stepped up to look after the project. And I was just amazed, because I'm kind of naive by habit. And I just couldn't believe that he deliberately led us on and just sabotaged the presentation, so it would just be looked upon as a waste of time and be dismissed by these sort of monastic amateurs who are trespassing on an area where professionals should be looking after it. And then also the way he presented it, he said, well, of course, this was all Ajahn Vipassi's plan, wasn't it? It's kind of, he's got carried away with this, hasn't he? And I felt a lot of regret afterwards, and I actually apologized to Vipassi years later. I said, when the secretary did that, I just sort of went along with it and said, oh yes. And I felt myself, I should have spoken up then. I should have said, you're completely out of line here. That was it was really awful what you did in the meeting. That was a real betrayal. And I didn't. And it sat with me for a long time. And so eventually, a few years later, when I had a time to sit down with Ajahn Vipassana, I said, I want to say to you, I really want to apologize, because there was a situation and I let you take the blame, and let you be sort of named as the kind of person who ran that, or it was your idea, and dissociated myself from it. And I thought that was really, I should have stood up, and I should have acknowledged that, and and nailed this guy for being out of order, and so that sat with me for some time.
Sometimes one suffers with shock.
There was a degree of that. It's like
It happened, and you're so shocked that you don't speak up at the time, and you think, "Oh, I wish I'd said that."
Right, and there was a part of that. I was just so amazed that someone would be deliberately deceitful in a monastery. Like, again, I could be pretty naive, but I thought, why, he did it on purpose? What? And I just didn't really have a place to put it. It's like it within me. So just using that as an example, that it's, I would say it's completely in keeping with teaching and practice to check your intention and just say and recognize, something's out of order like that, and say, no, I'm not going to go along with this. That's deceitful, and you're just pursuing this for your own ends, and I don't agree. And it's hard to disentangle, to tease apart that sense of, no, I love you dearly, but I'm totally opposed to your actions, because they do get mushed together, they get conflated. But that's one of the things that with meditation is very helpful to explore that. Like if you bring that up in a meditation period and just explore the feelings around an issue or a situation like that, and say, okay, what am I feeling here? Do I want revenge? Or where am I coming from here? And it's generally the best thing to do is to, if you see that you do have a vindictive attitude, or you feel yourself reacting in a negative way, it's the best sit on it for a bit longer. Just to wait. But when you do find that there's a sense of, no, it's not, I don't want him to be different so that my world will be tidier. I want him to be different because he's causing himself such pain. Then act freely to speak out, whether the person, whether they are someone close to you in your family or a business situation or whatever. It's the same across the board. If you feel that and you recognize your intentions are benevolent, then to speak your truth according to the facts as you know them. Yes.
Does forgiveness imply contact? There were two people in my life that have done me a great deal of harm. I do forgive them in the sense that I don't harbour any negative feelings, but I don't wish to have any contact with them. Is that acceptable?
Can people hear the question? Yeah. It was the fellow here said there's some people in his life that he forgives them, but doesn't want to actually have to contact them. I think that's fair enough. There's a certain worth of making reparations or actually making contact. Sometimes can be a useful thing, but it's and you have to judge those situations really from your own intuition. It's like, and just to really consider what's going to be most helpful, what's going to be helpful for me, what's going to be helpful for them, and to let that be what guides you. And if there's a sense of intense discomfort around any idea of making contact or feeling, what could you say or how would you say it, then I would say just leave it. Just let yourself know, okay, well there's this intense discomfort right now. There's nothing that I feel I can or can say that will be helpful. So just to work on it from your own side, to not be carrying any kind of negativity around on your side. But then also it's important to consider the aspect of it being a gift, that because for the people it might be important for them to know at some point that you're not carrying anything around, and as a gift to them rather than being just for you, just like that sense of recognizing that it might be a relief. They might feel a lot of regret, and that they've never been able to express that because of being too proud or too embarrassed about something, or just feeling it was too long ago or whatever. Sometimes it can have a surprisingly good effect. I mean, I don't know the details of your situation, obviously, but it's good to include that dimension as well, that it's not just for your side, but also what's going to help them.
Thank you.
Ajahn, can you comment on the Lockerbie disaster? The parents and the relatives of the victims are so angry about Magrahi, the Libyan, have been released, and even more the fact that he hasn't died yet. I wonder how, because feeling of doing it is so much, isn't it?
Well, it's Ruki's asking about the families of the victims of the Lockerbie bombing, yes. And that the fact that the convicted bomber has been released on the basis that he was going to die soon. Yeah. Well, it's to me it's a very clear expression of how deeply embedded in our instinctual nature that feeling for revenge is. It's a very basic instinct. It's a very primal it's way deep in our sort of reptile brain. In that realm of instinct and reaction, it's a very primal feeling, and the dynamic. If you see any kind of animal species that function in packs or tribes that have hierarchies and such like, then this is how they function. Whether it's wolves or chimpanzees or whatever, these are not refined human instincts. So it's revealing that basic primal urges that come from us living in a social group. That and the Dhamma is, in so many respects, is pointing out ways that we can rise above those primal instincts. The 5 precepts are outlining all those areas of our sort of primal reactivity around life and death, around property, around sexuality, around communications. That's the Buddha pegged out. This is the areas where we get really lost. On life and death, property, territory, sexuality, communications. This is where we really lose it. Okay, so panatipata viramani. So the reason why we take the 5 precepts as a basic format for moral behavior, what makes us human, is because it's highlighting the areas of our instinctual reactivity, where we are blindly pulled by those tribal instincts that are, if they're liable to be what guides our actions, unless we have some clear way of highlighting them and ameliorating the habit of following them. So that's why you might have a feeling of wanting revenge or wanting to punish, but then you're using the precepts as a guideline, then you recognize, panatipata, okay. So that what you're doing with that is recognizing these are natural instincts, but they're not refined. I mean, violence is a natural instinct. Possessiveness is a natural instinct. Jealousy is a natural instinct. But we can do better than that. And the Dhamma teachings are pointing out, look, this is something to study and to learn. How does jealousy work? How does vengeance work? How does acquisitiveness work? Look at it. See how it operates. Get to know how this functions, and then using the basic guidelines of say dana and sila and bhavana, to using those as tools to help us evolve from being say blindly pulled around by those instinctual forces. We can do better than that, and that this is one of the most powerful and wonderful things of the Dhamma, is that it's taking the raw material of a human life and things that are natural enough, like the desire for revenge, and recognizing, well, we can do better. Now, how do we do better? And so, just being able to see, yes, that person's actions were appalling. The results were incredibly destructive, killing all the people on the plane, and then the negative effect on the lives of all of their families as well. But does more hatred make things better? Do you, by forgiving, automatically condone the actions? That's why it's an important area to look at. Do you feel that the actions of certain people mean that it's your duty to carry around bitterness? What is that? Like the honor killing, that it's your duty to protect the honor, to destroy a life. And the Dhamma teachings are pointing to the harmfulness that's there in those attitudes, and suggesting, look, we can do better. Now, how can we, on the one hand, say condemn the action and recognize that's unskillful, that's harmful, that's not to be done, but yet to not create the causes of more negativity and disharmony in the future. And it's not easy to do, but it's a to me that's one of the most beneficial aspects of Dhamma practice, that we find that the thin line of the middle way, where we are able, in this particular instance, to find the quality of forgiving, but you're not just being totally passive or saying, "Oh, everything's fine." And certainly with imprisonment or punishment, recognizing that the certain instances, like people like Jimmy Boyle, they have a clear example of someone's life genuinely being turned around. Other people's lives, they can't turn them around, and so then it's society's duty to contain those persons' actions, because they're going to be more destructive and harmful. So it's the responsibility is to contain and to confine those persons when their actions are going to continue to be destructive. So you're being practical and alert to the negative results of action, but without creating more causes for negativity and for harming. It's not the middle way is not an easy line to find.
They're steeped in the Christian faith, and it must be over about 2,000 years now, isn't it? So, like we've been.
Well, you can say that, but I mean, those instincts of punish the wrongdoer, they're way pre-Christian. I mean, it's like we're talking like 150,000 years ago. I mean, these are very basic instincts in the human group, so that you're dealing with very powerful and primal forces. And so I think, in a sense, having compassion for the families of the Lockerbie victims, that they feel that loss and they feel that resentment, and the pain that they're carrying around, not only of their own grief, but the pain of hatred and the desire for vengeance. That's a lot of suffering that they're experiencing on account of that. And so cultivating compassion on account of that, to me, is the most helpful thing. And and recognizing more negativity is only going to make it worse. And I think for each of us, it's important to try and find that line, whether it's in an issue like the Lockerbie bombing, or it's an issue about like the stress within the community, the difficulties in the nuns who've been moved to leave the community or to disrobe, and these are major stresses and pains within the community. So it's not encouraging just the quality of passivity, but you're trying to use the quality of forgiveness to accommodate the dukkha that's there and create the causes for greater clarity and understanding in the future. Because we receive the results of past causes. Moment by moment we receive the effects of past causes. You can't undo those causes, right? They've already happened. So we receive the effects of past causes, but in this moment we plant the causes for future effects. So how we handle the pain of that loss, or someone's rage at someone who's meeting someone who set off a bomb that killed several of your family members, then it's a challenge in this moment to receive the effects of those past causes, and in this moment to create the causes for greater clarity and understanding, and peacefulness in the future. That's the challenge. Okay, well, I see the clock is at 4:00, so let's take that as a moment to finish today. So I'm not sure what next week's subject is, but I'm sure it's printed somewhere. So whatever's been said today, please take that and use it, whatever is useful, and whatever hasn't been useful, please leave that behind. And look forward to seeing you all next week.